Right, one of the first craft brews that I've ever tried was Brewdog Elvis juice. This stuff is amazing. It's flavoured with grapefruit juice. It's a lovely IPA, and I'm just kind of interested about how it's made. So I've downloaded the recipe and I'm going to try and make my own. So here we have it, Brewdog Elvis juice. I don't think anyone quite knows why it's called Elvis juice, but the Elvis Presley estate actually took exception to that, took them to court and forced them to change the name. Now, Brewdog appealed against that, won their case back and actually got to keep the name Elvis juice. And famously during that process, the two CEOs actually changed their name to Elvis, although there is some skepticism over whether they actually did that. But it's, you know, you're onto a good thing when Aldi are copying all your drinks. And the industry as a whole, the craft brew industry, has had a lot of stick over the strength of some of these beers. Now, Brewdog changed the strength from 6.5 down to 5.1%. But the people went against them and they said, look, you spoke, we listened, and here it is back as the original 6.5% Brewdog Elvis juice. Right, I need to find the recipe. So I've got a Brewdog book. It's got all the recipes, all their favourite beers in there. So I was just having a look through to pick the recipe out. Hazy Jane, one of my favourites. Lost Lager, but where is Elvis juice? It's not even there. So I have to go online now. Brewdog are really good. They share all of their recipes, so home brewers can have a go at all of their beers. And I found the recipe. You just go to Brewdog DIY and there it is. So I've got the recipe there. I've written out everything that I need from there. There was some different types of yeast, but the Y yeast I thought was the one to go with. All the hops are listed out, the brew temperatures, the times, everything. So all I need to do now is put that into the portal on the mini brew, and I've added all of them bits in there, and here we are, we're ready to go. So the first thing to do with this mini brew is just get 2 litres of water in there, and that will just put a boil cycle on that just to make sure it's very clean inside the keg. So I've got the tubes here, we put the attachments onto that, and them attachments just make sure that they're circulating the water through the water heater and through the keg, and it just pumps that water through just to make sure it's all nice and clean inside there. That gives me time to do some other things. So I've got the hops here, I've got everything ready. Some I've had from before, other ones I've had to buy for this recipe. So now is the time to measure them all out. So I've got 2 grams of Magnum, 3 grams of Amarillo, 3 grams of Simcoe, 6 grams of Citra, 6 grams of Mosaic, and another 3 grams of Amarillo there. And I just need to keep a little bit of order on what I'm doing here. So I've got some post-it notes and I just mark them as I go to make sure I know exactly what I've got and which goes into which pouch. So I can put them all back on the plate then, and they are ready to go for when I'm ready for my hopping phase. So we're just adding the boil water into this now. So it's 6.5 litres of water going into there. And we've got the little net that will catch any of the malts that come through, and the hops and the little elements of the carousel will all drop through there into that. So time for the malts. So just 2 malts in that. It's 1920 grams of Maris Otter and 380 grams of caramel. So I'm just going to weigh them out and pop them into the bowl. So it's the water addition now. I've got about 1.7 litres of water to add to that to make that into the mash, and we just want that to soak in there, to steep into all of them grains. So I'll just give them a little mix up, let them settle for a little bit until we've got a nice mash. So this is the mash tun. Now I've lost my little black lid for that at the moment. I can't get another one online at the moment. So I just use a bit of foil to stop all the grains going through there, and we just empty that in there, spread it out a bit, pop the caps on top of that, and that will be ready to go. So we're going to pop that onto the mini brew, and the next thing to do is then go to the app and just let the app know that all of that is in place, and it will start the cycle. So this is the hop carousel, so I want to put them little tabs in there to stop the hops falling through, and that will give me time then to get all these hops that I've pre-prepared. I know exactly which one is where, and we just want to wet them little like tea sacks. We just want to wet them up a little bit in water so that they're pre-soaked, and then we're going to put each one of them in the corresponding hole. So we've got between 1 and 6 there, and we just know which ones we're dropping at which times. Now the hop carousel is getting popped on the top, and that will just turn and pop them into the mix at just the right times, and that gives me time to get the yeast ready. So we're getting into sanitizing because we're after that process. We want to be very sterile, sanitized in what we're doing. So we get that now. This is a smack pack. You're supposed to smack that and let that leach out, but I need about half of this. I think half is more than enough. So I'm going to sanitize everything, and just get that pack cut open, and I'll just keep half of that for later. So I'll pour it in, and then I think I'll just eyeball to make sure I've got half of that, and I'm going to mix it with the other solution that's in there, and that's kind of a nutrient to feed the yeast and just get it all going before the mix. So that's all done now. Everything is dropped in there, so I can now take this apart and start the cleanup process. And there is all the old hops and the hop discs and everything there in that net. So I'll just let the last bit of that flavour soak out into the beer. Now we just want to pop the cap on this now, just to make sure that we're keeping it all nice and clean, and we'll put the little screw in top as well. So time to transfer that to the keg stand. So make sure we close it at the base, because obviously that's open, and then that will lift across, and then we'll plug that in because the keg itself has its own Wi-Fi connection. So it will transfer from the base to the keg, and then that will run itself on the app. And the last thing to do with the base station there is just run another clean cycle at the end of it. So we're going to pop the apparatus back on, pop in another dishwasher tab, and that just pumps it through and cleans that whole process and pumps it away into the sink. So we're going to open the rub container on the base to let all the yeast drop down into that, and then we're going to put the airlock in the top so that when the CO2 is all bubbling up there, that it just bubbles away nicely. And it's quite therapeutic looking at this sometimes, just bubbling away. So I come back day after day, and you can see when the yeast has got to the point where it's filling up that rub container and looks very solid in the base. So that's all dead yeast. We can just open that up and let that away. And we want to put a bit of CO2 back into that, so we can pop that back on, open up the valve again, and that will catch any more that comes out during the cold crash. Right, we're getting ready now for the addition of this sweet orange peel and the dry hopping phase. So we've got Simcoe, Citra and Amarillo, 1.2 grams of each, and this sweet orange peel. So I just decided to put half a pack of that in there, and we'll just hope for the best.
Now, this being a grapefruit beer, we've got grapefruit extract to go into this. So again, I didn't quite know how much, but we can add a bit more at the end if we need to. So I just thought I'd take one little sample of that, put that in, and yeah, looking forward to see how this is going to turn out. These are the best bits along the way. You get to have a little sample of the beer and just see how it's all going. And take some testing, and look at that, the colour of that is amazing. That is exactly what I was hoping for. And it's carbonation time now, so we want to put the CO2 gas on there, just open it up. Now, because I've opened it a little bit, I just want to make sure that I let the air out. The air should be at the top, so as I open that valve it comes away. And this is the end of the dry hop process, so I can take out all of that lovely juice, the orange peel and the dry hops, and it's time for testing. So I'm pretty much bang on with the strength of that. I'm at about 6.5%, so it just worked out well this time. Okay, and here we are, and it's finally time to taste. This is my version of the very famous Brewdog Elvis juice. One of the first craft beers that I ever had, and I was blown away by the flavours that there were in that, the grapefruit flavours that were coming through, the orange that was in there. So there she is, the Brewdog Elvis juice. And let's see how my version has turned out of this. There we go, looking at that, a little bit lively there. Colour wise it's really similar actually, maybe a little bit lighter in the original, a bit less filtering in my one, I suppose would make the difference. Yes, I mean, it's one of the best beers out there, and if you haven't tried it, you must. That is actually really good. I've done a really nice version now. Do you know, there's more orange flavours, a bit like the flavours when you bite into the peel of an orange in that. A little bit less than the original, but maybe it could do with a little bit more grapefruit flavours, and that's an easy fix for me actually, because it was grapefruit extract that we put in there. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more grapefruit extract to that, and I've done something this time that's as good, maybe even better than the original. So until the next time, cheers. Yeah.